Welcome to Design to Thrive with Dr. Brooke. I'm Dr. Brooke Silverhorn, your podcast host. Here, we share wisdom for women to create legacy for daughters through conversations around health and life, family and faith, rooted in nervous system healing, embodied living, and God designed for those. In today's episode, we are going to dive into cyclical living. This is something that I learned about in the middle to late 2018, and it is a concept that has truly transformed the way that I look at the female body and has helped me to feel more grounded as a business owner. In 2018, I started noticing a pattern. Once a month, I would have a day where I felt incredibly anxious, where I had thoughts about being a complete failure as a wife, as a mom, as a business owner, and that I really should just give up and burn everything to the ground. Those were the thoughts that would go through my head once a month. I was comparing myself to male chiropractors and sometimes even other female chiropractors and business owners. And yet the next day I felt a little more grounded and I wasn't having these major anxious moments. So it literally was just a day. But I started noticing that it would happen once a month around the same time. Now, the interesting thing, looking back, is that it was far enough away from when my period would start that I didn't associate it at all with my menstrual cycle. Because of all of the healing that I had done after a thyroid cancer diagnosis, I didn't really experience a lot of the typical PMS symptoms that I had prior to being pregnant and giving birth to my daughters and going on that healing journey. So I didn't associate these anxious feelings and this day of dread with my menstrual cycle whatsoever. But I saw this pattern. And so after several months of this pattern showing up, every month, I asked in a group of chiropractors that I was in. It was mainly women, but there are a few men in the group. And the focus of this group was preconception health. So we talked a lot about prenatal health and conception and menstrual cycles and all of the things. So I asked, hey, has anybody ever noticed this? I'm seeing this pattern in my life. And one of the doctors said, you need to read the book, Do Less by Kate Northrup. And I highly recommend it. I downloaded it on Audible and I literally listened to it twice over the course of 3 days. It sucked me in and it changed my life. Now, that book is not super heavy on the science, and it doesn't necessarily need to be, but it presented the menstrual cycle in a different light from how I had learned it through all of my science classes. And I will admit, I've learned about the menstrual cycle and even taught about the menstrual cycle on numerous occasions. I learned it in high school and college, undergraduate college a couple of times, and chiropractic college a couple of times. And then as a adjunct professor a couple of years teaching anatomy and physiology at a local college, I taught about the menstrual cycle there as well. But there was always a disconnect. There was always something that I understood it scientifically, but it didn't land for how it related to me as a woman. And I honestly think that that is probably the way it is for most women. And so listening to this book, I was inspired and I started listening to more books and reading more cyclical living type books. I will drop the names of some of those into the show notes for the podcast as a resource. But it's not necessarily that you have to do that deep dive and read all the books like I did. But at a certain point, I was like, I have to share this with others. I have to share this with the women that I encounter because of how it transformed the way that I listened to my body. And that's what I want to highlight today in this podcast, because truth be told, I actually sat down to record this same episode a few days ago. And I got into the nuts and bolts of cyclical living and quickly realized that this is taught easier as a masterclass with slideshow and with images and graphics to help a woman really see all of these things. The other thing that I realized is that there is so much in the world of cyclical living that is like, oh, well, if you're in this phase of your cycle, you need to eat these foods and you need to exercise in this way. And it's not necessarily wrong. And it also causes women to have another checklist. And the thing that I love the most about cyclical living is really honoring your body where it is at instead of forcing it to be a certain way. So honoring your body's natural energy in the phase that it is in, loving where your body is at, not making it wrong, not making it bad, not overriding it. And so what I decided to do was make this podcast episode really about that, about listening to the wisdom of your cyclical design and leaning into that. So we're not going to talk about all of the things about cyclical living. That's what master classes are for. That's what longer form presentations are for, and not necessarily a podcast. In fact, I know that there are cyclical living podcasts out there that the whole podcast, every episode is talking about one aspect or one element of cyclical living. So to do this truly justice, I want to talk about how we can honor our bodies in each phase of our cycle. So the first thing I want you to do is imagine 4 phases. Now, when I was growing up and in school, it's taught differently, but this really helps to delineate the different energies of the different phases of the menstrual cycle. So I want you to envision 4 phases are like inner seasons. Everything in nature has a rhythm. Everything in nature is cyclical, from the rising and setting of the sun to the phases of the moon to the seasons in nature to planting and harvest and growth and development of us as women. So your natural cyclical design is that your menstrual phase, which is when you bleed, is like the inner season of winter. So it's your inner winter. The follicular phase or pre-ovulation is like your inner spring. Ovulation is like your inner summer. And the luteal phase or premenstrual phase is like your inner autumn. So I want you to picture those seasons as we go through this, because it really speaks to how your energy ebbs and flows. And what I want you to take from this is that as women, our energy is different from the men in our lives. Men have a hormonal cycle that is a 24-hour cycle. So they have ebbs and flows in their hormones and their energy, but it lasts 24 hours and then it resets and is the same, which is why men can be the way that they are and do the things that they do day in and day out without little challenge to their energy and their well-being. Whereas women, our energy and our hormones ebb and flow on a 28-ish day cycle. And I say ish because for some women, their natural cycle may be a little bit shorter of a time period. It may be 25 days. For some women, it could be longer, up to 35 days. But 28 days is really the ideal. It aligns with the cyclical nature of the moon. So for those women who do not actively bleed, do not have a menstrual cycle, for various reasons. You're pregnant, you are on hormonal birth control because the bleed that you have is not a menstrual bleed. It is not associated with ovulation. It is a breakthrough bleed because of the pill. And then, if you've had a hysterectomy or you are irregular in your cycle and there needs to be some healing that happens in your body, You may be going through perimenopause, so your bleeds are further and further apart. And then finally, if you have gone through menopause and are no longer bleeding, that does not take away the fact that you have a cyclical design. And there are ways that you can align with that cyclical design in your energy, in the way that you live and you work and you play and you rest. And so if you are one of those women who do not currently bleed, don't stop watching. I want you to keep watching or listening, because this is as much for you as it is for those women who have regular menstrual cycles. So the first phase we'll talk about is the very beginning of our menstrual cycle, and that is when we bleed. Because when you track your cycle, day one of your entire menstrual cycle is the first day that you bleed. And that is the menstrual phase, is that first phase of the menstrual cycle. And that is our inner winter. And the gift of the menstrual phase is that it is a time for rest and reflection and release. Our body is letting go physically, mentally, emotionally. It is letting go of things that no longer serve us. And the beauty of that is that it allows for newness and renewal to come after. So if you've ever been at a time in your life where your body is just so depleted that your period is really yucky and it doesn't feel good, I want you to think about what your body is asking of you. Have you been pushing too hard? Have you been going without resting? Have you had the gas pedal down and not used your brakes at all? Because when we have really painful periods, that is our body crying out and saying, I need rest. And what I have found is that the more that I honor my body through each season or phase of my menstrual cycle, the easier it is. Each phase has its own gifts, its own different energies. And sometimes, because I have honored my body in different phases, when I come to my menstrual phase and I'm actively bleeding and my body needs rest, I actually have more energy because I had honored it before. I'm not so depleted that I don't have any energy whatsoever. But what I have found is that in those times, I still need rest. I still need slowness, but I am surprised by the fact that I still have the energy for those daily things. Whereas, I have heard women and experienced as a teen and younger adult, I've experienced times where I was down for the count for 2 or 3 days, horrible cramps, horrible migraines. I still get menstrual cycle related headaches from time to time. And again, I know that that is in part because I haven't been nourishing my body, trusting my body, allowing for rest and space when it's asking for it. And then that causes an impact in all of the hormones and the way that my body is functioning and reacting. One of the things that I think is so cool about the menstrual phase is that our body is physically doing what is also energetically happening. We are shedding what is no longer needed, and that happens physically and it happens mentally, emotionally. Sometimes you may even notice things in your life that are just like no longer aligned. They shed away during that time. And what happens when we allow space for all of that shedding is that inspiration will come. You may have a great idea that just pops in your head during this time. Now, that doesn't mean that it's time to act on it. But there is wisdom that your body gives you when you allow it space to be with what is. So now we're going to go on to the follicular phase. And I want you to picture that inner springtime. What is the energy like in spring? I remember thinking back to my time when I lived in Iowa. Everyone just had more energy and excitement because it wasn't so cold. You were outside more, even if it was still a little bit chilly. You were just excited to be out in nature and be around other people. And you were seeing new life popping up, whether it was creatures or plants, flora and fauna. And that is what the follicular or pre-ovulation phase is in our body. It is our inner spring. So the energy that you have and hold during this phase of your cycle is that of newness. You have more energy. You have more inspiration to start acting on some of those ideas that maybe popped up toward the end of your menstrual phase. You may even start having even more ideas, wanting to create, wanting to start things new and fresh, try new hobbies, try new activities. This is a time where you may be inspired to reach out to someone and schedule a meeting or a date. It doesn't mean that it happens during this phase, but it might just be that connection point that starts to happen. This phase is a beautiful reminder that we are not stuck wherever we are at in our life, whether it's in a month, in a day, in a week, in a year. We have the opportunity to refresh, renew, create change in our lives, in our bodies. The follicular phase is a really beautiful reminder that there's always something new and fresh coming, that it doesn't have to stay stagnant in our lives, that we can create something new. And when you honor that energy, again, it will create momentum in your life to facilitate change, which is just absolutely beautiful. Now we're going to move on to ovulation. Now, scientifically, ovulation is a moment in time when our ovaries release an egg, and the energy around ovulation spans 3 or 4 days. So I want you to picture that season of summer. Ovulation is your inner summer, where you are in full bloom. You're in your full glory. You are more magnetic. You're more attractive. And this is a beautiful time to be visible. It is a time to connect with others, to put yourself out there and be visible. It is a time to make things happen in your life, in your business. So I tell a lot of women business owners that this is really a beautiful time to network, to record content. If you're going to be teaching a master class or something like that, that it's a really good time to do that. But it's also great for getting together with your girlfriends or going out on a date with your loved one. It's a time to allow yourself, give yourself permission to be front and center and to be visible. A couple things that I will note about ovulation and the energy that we experience here. We all wish that we could be in ovulation all of the time. And that is not what our bodies are designed for. We are designed for that ebb and flow of energy. So I always caution women to make sure that you don't try to stay in that ovulation, that inner summer energy for too long, because then that's where we run into trouble when we go into our luteal phase or our inner autumn, because then our body will start fighting against us. We will have more fatigue. We will have more menstrual cycle PMS symptoms because we didn't listen to our body's natural slowing down. So we're not going to stay in full bloom all the time. Even plants, they don't bloom like it's summer year round. They have a little bit more hibernation state. Some plants will, bloom for a period of time and then they stop. And that is the way that our body is as well. Honestly, I think that the gift of the ovulation phase is the gift of expression. It teaches us that our voice, our presence, our visibility is important, and it is a big part of our healing. This is the phase that says, let yourself be witnessed. The final phase is by far my favorite phase, even though most women would say it is the worst part of being a woman. And that is the luteal phase or the premenstrual phase. And I know most women are like, it sucks. It feels messy. It feels chaotic. My emotions are all over the place. I have all of these symptoms. And I just want you to hopefully see that there are gifts with all of that. The luteal phase, the gift of it, again, it's our inner autumn, is we're letting go. We are preparing to completely release. And the luteal phase is really where we start to become aware of what is not working in our lives. We start to feel that tension, and that's where those emotions start coming out. We get frustrated, maybe because we're trying to push, like we're still in ovulation, and our body is saying, no, you need to slow down. A couple of things that I love about the luteal phase is that the energy lends itself towards completion. Just think harvest time. We are reaping the benefits of the previous three phases of the cycle. We're completing the work that we started in the follicular phase. We are checking things off our list. We are organizing, and I like to think of it kind of like the nesting process that pregnant women do before they give birth. We are preparing for that time when we bleed, where we're wanting to rest and recover. So we're getting all the stuff done that needs to be kind of wrapped up so that we can rest. And isn't that a beautiful thing? Our body is just naturally preparing ourselves for what is to come. Again, I just think that that tension that we feel in the luteal phase is such a gift, because it is our body's way, our emotions' way of saying, this is not working for us anymore. It is a truth telling part of ourselves, and it invites us to refine our lives, to ask ourselves, what is not working? Where is this tension coming from that I'm feeling? What do I need to let go of? And what needs support? What are the things that we are seeing that no longer serve us in our lives? And that truly is a gift. I know it feels messy. And at the same time, that messiness invites us to refine. And one of the things that I have observed as I have leaned into this way of honoring my body where it is at is that the more that we do it, the more that we understand where we are at in our cycle, that it's not just we're a hamster in a wheel going through the same circle every time. It's actually an upward spiral where we may revisit the same four phases of a menstrual cycle every month. But if we learn, if we grow, if we release, if we renew, if we allow ourselves to be visible, if we allow ourselves to let go of what is not serving us anymore, that we will continue to improve our health, our lives, our relationships, our friendships, our businesses. We will improve the lives of others around us because we are truly living into the wisdom that God instilled in our physical beings. So I'll end with a reminder of what those four gifts of the menstrual cycle are. In menstruation, our inner winter, the gift is the wisdom to release. In pre-ovulation or the follicular phase, our inner spring, the gift is renewal and to begin again. In ovulation or our inner summer, the gift is permission to be seen. And in the luteal phase or pre-ovulation, our inner autumn, the gift is discernment to tell the truth. I know this is maybe something new for you, and I hope that you can glean some wisdom from it. I hope that it spoke to you in some way. And if it did, I would love to hear from you what stood out to you the most. And if you want to learn more, if you want to go even deeper into how you have a cyclical design and how there is wisdom in your body that you can honor from one day to the next, from one phase of your menstrual cycle to the next, I will be hosting a masterclass, and it will be launched in the near future. But if you're interested in learning more about that when it is ready, put your name in the comments and we will make sure to connect with you. I hope that this spoke to you. Again, please make sure that you share this with a friend who might find value in it. And remember, you are designed to thrive.